if you wanted to create a view or a virtual table, you can select the data, you can select the fields or a columns or attributes from one or more table. In the student detail as well as in the student marks, we have name. So I wanted to fetch a name column from this student detail. By restricting certain accessibility to the data, it will going to provide a table level security. Already we know that, right? We have a column level constraint and also we have a table level constraint. Everyone, a warm welcome to one and all. Welcome back to the session 5 of unit 3 and we are in the B.C.A semester 4 of subject called Database Management System. As we all know that in short it is Dbms. I am Rohini T.S. Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. So before getting into our today's session of Unit 3 and we are in the Chapter 2, that is Sql-The Relational Database Standards. So before going to today's session, we'll just have a quick recap of my previous session. So in the last session of this chapter, we had discussed regarding set operations and also I have discussed regarding the aggregate function. So when it comes to the set operation, it includes union and also it has a union all and also it includes intersect and we have minus. So these are the operations which comes under set operations and also we have a aggregate function. So in that we learned regarding count and also we have sum function and we have minimum, maximum as well as average function. So these are the functions which comes under the category of aggregate function. This is what I have discussed in my previous class. So in our today's session, we're going to learn about the views. So in short, it is virtual tables of SQL. So in this, we'll see what is views and what is its usage and how we can create these views and what is the need of having this views and what are its advantages, how we are going to delete the views, that and all I will be discussing regarding this views. Let me get into the session with respect to views here. So we also have table, right? So table consists of collection of rows as well as it includes the number of tuples or a record. So by collecting all the columns or by taking some of the column from a particular table or from the different table, we can also create one more table. So that virtual table is called as views in the SQL. So just imagine I have a table called T1. You imagine I have a table called T1 and also I have a one more table called T2, right? So here by adding certain columns of T1 and by taking certain column from T2, I am going to create one more table called T3. So from the table 1, I have selected one column. From the table 2, I have chosen two columns. So in the table 3, it consists of 3 columns. So virtuality, that means we are not having a physical data or we are not having a physical table here. Instead of that, we are having a virtual table. So that virtual table is nothing but views in the SQL. So that views in the SQL are considered as a virtual table. We are not actually creating a table just by picking the columns from the different tables, or it can be from single table only I can take some of the columns, or from multiple tables only I can collect the column. Then I am going to make one more table. That table is considered as what? Virtual table, and it will also going to have a rows as well as the columns. Whatever we have in the T1 column, that will going to be copied or it will going to be integrated with a T2. Then we can make this T3 table. So both it will going to have rows as well as the columns. And also in order to create a view, we can use the select field from one or more tables which is present in the database. As I told, if you wanted to create a view or a virtual table, you can select the data, you can select the fields or a columns or attributes from one or more table. And also a view can either have specific rows based on certain condition or all the rows of a table. So here you can have certain rows or else you can have all the rows of a particular column. So whenever you are choosing a column, so here also you can make a choice. So if you wanted to have only 2 rows for this column, or you wanted to have all the rows of this column. That is left to the user based on their requirement. They are going to choose based on the where condition, or it will be based on certain predicates. So here you can see that we have one sample table. The table name is student detail. So you need to remember this table name. What is the name of the table here? That is student detail. It consists of student ID and we have a name as well as address. This is one table. It comprises of 3 columns and it has 4 tuples or row, right? That is regarding student details. And we have one more table. What is that? Student marks. So here also we have a student ID, name, marks, age. So already we had a student ID and name in the previous table also. So we have those 2 fields. Along with that, I will be having 2 more fields called marks as well as age. So with the help of this student marks and student detail, I can create one more table. So if you are picking certain column or a fields from one or more table, and when you are creating one more table with the help of all the collaboration of the column, will be considered as what? Virtual table, or it is in short called as view. Then how we are going to create a view? In the same way as of the table, we are also able to create the view. So here you can see that how we are going to create a view. So in order to create a view, we are going to use a keyword called create view. In order to create a table, create table. In order to create a view, create view. And I need to give a name for a view, right? If I wanted to fetch the content from the view, then we have to give a name for a view. So that is what the reason we have to use a create view and name. So here we can create a view from a single table or from a multiple tables. So you can have a what view or a virtual table by collecting the data or by collecting the fields from single table, or it can be of multiple table. Then what is the syntax in order to create a view? You can see here, create view. So we are having a keyword called create view, and what is the name for a view? That is view name. So here we are using alias name, that is as select column 1, column 2 up to column n from table name, and also we can have a where predicate with certain conditions. So here for example, if I have a student table, now I wanted to create only table called yes. So just let me tell you one thing here. Let me consider the example. I have a table called student and it comprises of a student ID and it has a name. And also it will going to include phone number. Okay. So these are the fields what we have in the student table. Now I wanted to create a view called yes. Okay. How I am going to do that? You can see here, create view, and what is the name I wanted to give? That is yes as. After that, select column 1, column 2. I just wanted to take only student ID and phone number. So as select student ID, comma, what I wanted to select? Phone number. From where I wanted to take that 2 columns? From the table called student. So here from student, where if I wanted to give certain condition, I can give. Let me consider 1, 2, 3 and also here Raju. Phone number will be 97 dash dash dash. Suma and 88 Ramya 7353. Okay, it will be like this. So these are the content where I wanted to give a condition where student ID is greater than 2. Okay, so then what it will going to have as a resultant value? We are going to have a view called S. There it will going to include student ID and phone number as a column. So this will be the table called S, and it will going to include student ID and phone number is also be there as a field, right? And from which table I wanted to select? I wanted to take that values or table columns or fields from student table where student ID is greater than 2. So here you can consider, I am not giving student ID is greater than or equal to 2. It is greater than 2. So need to leave 2 by, we have to take only 3. So that output will be what? Student ID will be 3 and the phone number will be like 7353 and certain other numbers. So this will be the resultant of a view. So we are creating a virtual view. This is not the physical data or this is not the actual table. So just by picking certain fields from a table or one or more table, we can create a view, right? So here you can see one more query here, create view, details view. What is the name of a view that I am creating? So that is details view as select name comma address from student details. Already we know what we have in student details, right? So we have a student ID, name, address. So out of that I am only fetching name as well as address from the student details tables, and I am giving a condition where student ID is lesser than 4. So if it is lesser than 4, you should not consider the student ID 4, which is below that, that is 1, 2, 3. So that value will going to be displayed. Then how can I see that value? Just by having this query, select star from details view. So now I wanted to view the content of view, so it will be details view. So here you can see the output from the student table. So from the student details table, we have fetched name and address, and now this name and address which comes under the details view. So this details view is a virtual table. So details view. So this is the virtual table which will going to have a data about the name as well as address, which we get it from student details. So it will be the virtual table, right? This is how we can fetch the content from single table. So what if I wanted to take a data from multiple tables? So there also possibility of fetching the data from multiple tables, so that view can be created from multiple tables, and also by including the multiple tables in the select statement. So here you can see that we have a single table and we are going to mention the single table name. But if I wanted to select a data or fields from multiple tables, instead of writing a single table name, I am just going to mention the table from wherever we are fetching the fields. So here you can see that. So now we are creating a view. That view name is marks view. From which table we are creating? From the student details and student marks. Already we had a discussion, or we know what we have in the student details as well as in the student marks. So by fetching the fields or attributes from these two tables, I am creating one more view called marks view. This is the name of a view or virtual table right now. So here how will be the query for that? You can see create view. I am creating a virtual table called marks view as select student detail dot name. Why? Because in the student detail as well as in the student marks, we have name. So I wanted to fetch a name column from this student detail, right? And also comma student detail dot address. I am fetching one more column called the address from the student detail table. So I picked name as well as the address from the student details. Student marks dot marks. I am taking only one attribute from this student marks table. So I am just taking marks field or attribute from the student marks. So as we all know that in the student details, what we have in the student details table? Student details table, it will going to include student ID and it has name and also it includes address. So these are the fields which we have in the student details table. And when it comes to the student marks, what we have there? So we have a student ID and also we have a name, marks, and we have one more column called age, right? So these are the attributes which we have in the student marks. So by integrating the value from the student details of name, so I am going to take the column name from the student details and I will be taking address from the student details, and I wanted to fetch only marks column from the student marks table, right? So from which table? By combining these two tables, that is what student detail comma student marks. So this is what the name of a table, where student detail dot name is equal to student marks dot name. So that means the name whatever we have in the student detail should also be there in the student marks table. So then only I can fetch the data. I can fetch the data of name, address as well as the marks of that student who are in both the table. So here you can see the equal symbol. We are what comparing. That means whatever the name we have in the student table, student details table should also match with the student marks table. So then only we can fetch that names along with the address and marks. So here you can see the resultant by typing select star from marks view. Why? Because marks view is the name of a view table. So that we are selecting the name, address as well as marks from combining those two tables together, and we are creating a view. So here you can see that Stephen, Catherine and David, Alina. So all these 4 students were there in both the tables. So if you remember the previous table, so there we had one more tuple called John. So that John is not there in the student detail. So that is why we are taking only those 4 students who are in both the table called student details as well as student marks. This is how we can create a view from multiple tables. Then how can we delete a view? How we are going to remove the view from the database? So view can be deleted using the drop view statement. So if you wanted to delete or if you wanted to remove the virtual table or a view from the database, then you can have this drop command here. So that drop view and what is the view name. So which view you wanted to delete, that view name or a virtual table name, that you need to specify along with a semicolon. So here already we have created a marks view. So now I wanted to delete that. How I should do that? By using a command called drop, and drop view and name of a view is marks view. This is how we are going to drop or we are going to delete. Already I have created one more table, right? Virtual table. What was its name? That is yes. So whatever we had in S will going to be removed from the database. So if you are trying to fetch this select star from yes, so then the content will going to be not exist. Even this virtual table is not exist in the database at all. So now we got to know that how we are going to create a view and how to delete that view. Then what are the benefits that we can get with the help of this view? That is what uses or advantages of a view. So what is the first advantage we have? Restricting data access. Though it is a virtual table, it will going to restrict the accessing of a content whatever we have in the virtual table. So that views will going to provide the additional level of table security by restricting access to a predetermined set of rows and columns of a table. So whenever we have a view, that is also a table or a relation comprises of rows as well as the column, right? So by restricting certain accessibility to the data, it will going to provide a table level security. Already we know that, right? We have a column level constraint and also we have a table level constraint. So if I am applying a set of regulations and rules for a whole table or for a particular columns or rows of a table, then we can say that as a table constraint. So it will going to have that feature. It will going to restrict the accessibility of a data. So it is also going to provide a table level security by restricting the access to predetermined set of rows as well as the columns of a table. And also it will going to hiding data complexity. So whatever the complex data, that means from wherever we are picking the columns or a field from multiple tables, so that complexity can be seen in the view. So that view can hide the complexity that exists in a multiple table join. So when we are joining different fields or columns from the multiple table, so that complexity will not be shown in the views. So it will going to hide a data complexity, and also it simplifies commands for the user. So as we did in the table, this view is also going to help in order to have a to include certain simple commands to work with the views, so that views allows the user to select information from the multiple tables without requiring the user to actually know how to perform a join. So here, if you don't know how to perform this join operation, so I will be discussing about in my coming session, right? Though you don't know how to join the content of a multiple tables, already this view is what? Collection or collaboration of a different fields or a columns from the multiple tables, so that user, by simply using certain commands, user can access the content of a views or a virtual table. And also it will going to store complex queries. So view can be used to store complex queries. So when you wanted to find, or when you wanted to have a confidentiality over the data, or when you wanted to provide a security to the content of a data, you can have a view. So it is also helpful in order to use or to store complex queries. What is the next one? Rename columns. So when you are fetching certain fields or a column from the different tables in order to create a view, then there will be a possibility of renaming a column, so that views can also be used to rename the columns without affecting the base table, which provides the number of columns specified in select statement. So that here, wherever we are fetching the different fields or attributes or a column from multiple views, so you can also rename the columns or a fields. So wherever you have fetched that column, that can be renamed. So if you are renaming that in the view table, that will not going to affect the original table from where you are fetching, right? For example, if you consider the student table, so just imagine I have a student ID, I have a name, and I have a age in the student table, that is STU. Okay, and I have one more table called yes. So here also I have S1, S2, S3. So these are the what columns or fields we have in a student table as well as in the S table. So by taking student ID name and S1, S2 from the both the table, I am going to create one more table called virtual view, that is virtual table. So here I will take student ID, and instead of name I will consider that as a yes name, and instead of considering this as S1, I will just consider that as small s1, and here it will be small s2. So if we are renaming any of a fields in the virtual table, that will not going to affect on the original table. That is what we are telling here. Renaming of a columns is possible in the virtual table. Even if it does so, that will not going to affect the base table or a original table. So that is regarding one of the uses of having this views. And also renaming will going to help to hide the names of the columns of a base table. If you wanted to have a confidentiality, or if you don't wanted to showcase the attribute or a field name of a original table or a base table, then you can also have the renaming option. So next, what is the one more advantage? Multiple view facility. So here different views can be created on the same table for different user. So as we did in the table, normal table, we can also have a multiple view facility based on the type of a user, whether he is a database administrator, name user, end user. Based on their what responsibility roles, we can have a, or we can create a certain multiple views of a views can be possible. So these are the uses or advantages what we have with respect to the view. It's all about views or a virtual tables in the SQL. I hope you all understood my today's session. In coming session, we'll see how join operation will going to perform. What do you mean by join? What are the types of joins we have, and how operations will going to take place in each type, that I will be discussing in my coming session. Along with that, as a last topic of this chapter as well as unit, we'll see what are the additional features we have in the SQL. At last, we'll see what is TCL or a transaction control language along with a data control language. That will be the content of my next session. I hope you all understood and enjoyed my today's session. Let me meet you in the coming session. Until that, keep learning, keep on growing. Thank you.